I was driving through the Arizona desert late at night, headed toward Monument Valley. The highway stretched endlessly, no gas stations for miles. My phone had no signal, and the air outside looked almost liquid under the heat waves rising off the asphalt, even though it was midnight. I was running low on gas, but convinced myself I could make it to the next town. That's when I saw them, two faint lights floating above the dunes to my right. At first, I thought they were distant headlights, but they hovered, perfectly still, way too high to belong to a car. About 10 minutes later, the lights were suddenly gone. Instead, there was a figure standing in the middle of the road. No car, no flashlight, just a man in tattered clothing, barefoot, head tilted to the side like he was listening for something. I slowed down, heart hammering, ready to offer help. But when my headlights hit him, I saw his face, burned, cracked like dried clay, and his mouth moving as if whispering. He stepped toward my car. I swerved and accelerated past him, glancing into the rearview mirror. He was still standing there, facing the opposite direction now, like he hadn't even seen me. A mile later, my radio turned on by itself, static at first, then faint voices speaking a language I didn't recognize. My car began to lose power, headlights dimming, engine stuttering. I coasted to a stop in the middle of nowhere. The voices on the radio got louder, clearer, chanting, almost rhythmic. I looked out the window and saw dozens of faint lights surrounding me in the desert, circling closer. With no signal, no power, I grabbed a flashlight and started walking toward the faint outline of a structure in the distance. It turned out to be the remains of an old gas station, burned out hollow. Inside, carved into the walls, were symbols that looked almost tribal, but not quite. Then I heard footsteps in the sand behind me, slow, dragging. When I turned around, the barefoot man from the highway stood at the doorway, head still tilted, eyes reflecting my flashlight beam. I ran. I don't know how long I ran, felt like hours, until I found a service truck parked on the side of the road. The driver let me in without a word, drove me to the next town, and dropped me off at a diner. When I turned to thank him, he was gone, truck and all. The police later told me Route 191 has dozens of reports of phantom hitchhikers and strange lights. They said no one's ever been hurt, but I still dream about that man's whispering mouth. I was hiking solo through Nevada's Black Rock Desert. People warned me about flash floods, rattlesnakes, dehydration, but no one warned me about what was underneath. 3 days into my trek, I found a narrow sinkhole hidden between two dunes. Curious, I peered inside. I heard something, faint, echoing voices. It sounded like someone crying for help. Against my better judgment, I tied my rope to a rock and descended. The air grew colder and the voices louder, whispers overlapping each other, some sobbing, some laughing. The cavern opened into a vast underground chamber. Old mining tools littered the ground. Strange bone-like formations hung from the ceiling. As I explored deeper, the voices began speaking my name. Not just "hey," but full sentences. "Why are you here, Daniel? Do you miss her? You never forgave yourself." I don't know how they knew about my sister's death. I turned a corner and saw something crawling along the ceiling. Long arms, pale skin stretched thin over bones. Its head jerked in unnatural angles as it sniffed the air. I ran, the tunnels echoing with screams, some mine, some not. When I emerged into the daylight, the hole behind me was gone. No sinkhole, no entrance, just flat sand. I quit hiking after that, but sometimes when the wind blows through the desert at night, I swear I hear voices calling me back. The Mojave Desert at dusk feels endless. The horizon bleeds orange and red, and every mile looks the same. Cracked asphalt, dead brush, and the occasional rusted sign pointing nowhere. I'd been driving for hours, running on fumes, the gas gauge needle trembling near empty. My GPS had long since lost signal. Just when panic started to settle in, I saw it, a faint neon glow far ahead. Relief hit me hard. The glow resolved into a small gas station, isolated in the middle of nowhere. Its sign flickered weakly, buzzing in the dry wind. The parking lot was empty, save for a single pump leaning like it had been battered by decades of sandstorms. Despite its worn look, the building radiated something strange, an almost magnetic pull. I parked and stepped out, the desert air cutting cold against my sweat-soaked shirt. The door creaked open with little effort, as if welcoming me. Inside, the smell of dust and spoiled candy filled my nose. Rows of shelves held snacks decades expired, labels faded and curling. A faint hum buzzed overhead from a dying fluorescent bulb. I called out, no response. Then I heard it, a soft ringing, like distant wind chimes. Following the sound, I approached the counter. A man stood there silently. His skin was gray, cracked, almost clay-like. His lips stretched into a smile far too wide. In a low, raspy voice, he whispered, "You're late." Before I could react, the lights cut out. Darkness fell thick, heavy. Outside, I heard footsteps, dozens of them, circling the building, crunching on the gravel. The air grew suffocating, as if the whole station was shrinking inward. I bolted, stumbling through the doorway into the night. My car's engine roared to life on the first turn, something I didn't dare question. Gravel sprayed behind me as I sped down the road, hands shaking on the wheel. My headlights cut through the desert void, searching desperately for another sign of life. Then, instinct made me glance at the rearview mirror. My breath caught. The gas station, the neon glow, the pumps, even the crooked sign, was gone. In its place was nothing but sand, flat and endless, stretching into the black horizon. No tracks, no building, nothing. I never spoke of it to anyone, but every time I drive through a desert at night, I check the mirrors. And sometimes, just for a second, I swear I see faint neon flickering in the distance. We were 4 hikers crossing a remote stretch of the Sonoran Desert. The heat had been brutal during the day, but by nightfall the temperature dropped fast, and the stars spilled across the sky like glitter on black velvet. We set up camp, lit a fire, and shared stories over the crackle of flames. It felt peaceful, even beautiful, until I noticed something strange. Far out on the horizon, maybe a mile away, another fire flickered faintly. Its glow pulsed, faint but steady, like someone else was camping out there. We hadn't seen a single soul for 2 days, and the isolation of this area was part of why we'd come. Curiosity and unease battled in my chest. Who else could be out here, and why were they so quiet? Around midnight, unable to shake the unease, one of us suggested checking it out. We packed flashlights and began walking toward the distant glow. The desert was silent, except for the crunch of our boots on dry sand. For an hour we walked, yet the fire never seemed closer. It just danced faintly ahead, like a mirage leading us forward. Eventually, panic started creeping in. Our GPS showed no movement, the compass needle spun erratically, and the air grew colder with every step. We turned back, relieved to return to camp and laugh at our paranoia. But when we reached where our tents should have been, we froze. There was nothing. No tents, no fire, no footprints. Just endless sand and wind moaning like distant voices. We wandered in circles until sunrise, dehydrated and terrified. The landscape seemed to shift around us, familiar landmarks vanishing when we looked away. At one point, I swore I heard someone whispering my name from behind a dune, but when I turned, only silence greeted me. 2 days later, park rangers found us collapsed near a dried-up riverbed, miles from where we thought we were. They said there was no other campfire, no other hikers, nothing in that area for dozens of miles. Still, I remember that flicker, the steady glow in the dark, waiting, always just out of reach. Sometimes, when I close my eyes, I still see it. And part of me wonders what would have happened if we'd kept walking. It was just past 2 a.m. when I was driving through a long stretch of desert highway in Nevada. The road was empty, and the only light came from my headlights slicing through the pitch-black night. Suddenly, I spotted a figure standing on the roadside, a woman in a flowing white dress that seemed to glow faintly in the dark. Her hair was long and tangled, obscuring her face, but she raised her thumb in the universal gesture for a hitchhike. Despite a creeping sense of unease, I pulled over. Something about her was wrong, but I ignored it, thinking she just needed a ride. She climbed in silently, not saying a word. The car's interior instantly felt colder. I asked where she was headed. She just whispered, "Home." Her voice was barely audible, like a breath caught on the wind. As I drove, I tried to catch a glimpse of her face, but her hair swayed and hid everything. The silence was oppressive, broken only by the hum of the engine and the occasional gust rattling the windows. Then, without warning, I glanced down and realized she was gone. The seatbelt was still fastened, the door shut tight, but the passenger seat was empty. Heart pounding, I slammed on the brakes and pulled over, staring out into the empty desert. No sign of her anywhere, just the open road stretching endlessly under the stars. I was shaken, unable to explain what had just happened. The next morning, I stopped at a roadside diner to shake off the nightmare. When I described the woman, the waitress went pale. She told me about Claire, a woman who had died 10 years ago on that very stretch of highway. Claire had been hitchhiking home when a car hit her. She never made it. Out the window, across the street, a small weathered cross marked the spot. The waitress whispered, "Some say she still tries to catch a ride home." To this day, I never drive that road at night. But sometimes, when the wind howls just right, I swear I hear soft footsteps on the gravel behind me and a faint whisper asking for a ride.